started with a coup. It became a revolution. Now it's the voice of a people demanding to be heard. At Insight Myanmar, we aim to document this unfolding story, one that reflects the resilience, courage, and determination of a nation. Join us as we explore the voices shaping this pivotal moment in history. On this episode of Insight Myanmar podcast, we are speaking to Alex. We are speaking to you from Stockholm, Sweden, and we are going to be talking to Alex about his analysis of elections and the worry, concern of the Myanmar military planning sham elections, what they may be up to, what other countries and how the international community may regard this, and everything else we need to know about what they're looking to do in setting up the quote-unquote elections sometime in the future. So, Alex, thank you for joining us here at Insight Myanmar podcast.
Thank you, Joa. It's very good to be here with you. I will start saying, like, it is a sham election that the military is planning to organize. It is just a tool of consolidating their power under the banner of so-called sham election. And I would just like to begin my talk with since the coup on February 1st, 2021, military has killed over 6,000 people and detained over 22,000 people. And more than 3.5 million people have been internally displaced, and military torture, killed civilian activists and political party members as well. And then they launch airstrikes almost every day. And recently, they launched an airstrike on a school in the Gai region, killing as many as 20 young children. And democratically elected leaders like Aung San Suu Kyi and President Wunna, they were illegally detained. And there's no freedom of expression in the country. Wearing a flower can even amount to as a crime in the gender lines. So in this context, how can we expect a free and fair election? So I know we are at the beginning of our podcast, but I just like to relay this message already to the international community and all the audience listening to this podcast. In this context, we cannot expect in whatsoever form a free and fair election.
Right. So that's important context that you're giving us for what has been going on and what continues to go on today. And I guess the first question to look into concerning the prospect of an election is and this is a question I often wonder, so maybe you can unpack this for us. The military is simultaneously breaking and destroying any aspect of rule of law, while they're also simultaneously trying to make this very phony and half-hearted attempt to show that they're actually following rule of law. And so, certainly they want to install themselves as leaders of the country. And yet it's not enough to be leaders. They also want to show some kind of legitimacy. And so the thing that I often wonder is why go to all this trouble? Why go to all this extent to want to go through this rigmarole that everyone knows is a false show from the get-go, instead of just saying, hey, we took control. We took control. We're holding control. We don't really need to do anything else. Why are they going to this extent to try to provide this background that everyone knows what it is, and yet they're already in control? So what's the purpose of this this kind of show they're putting on?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I mean, I also get the same question. Why are they going to all the trouble? They are the dictators at the end of the day. Everybody knows that. But what I understand is in this modern world, we don't see like clear-cut black and white dictators anymore. In the past, in the history, we have so many dictators and they just rule with the iron grid. But these days, we see dictators, but they always wear this coat of democracy or federalism. And they may be even talking about democracy and federalism more than you and I even do. So it is like they use it as a smoke screen. One of the reasons is like to convince all the followers of their regime. We are doing this, for the good of the country, and also in this century, democracy and federalism is a family word to everybody. So it's on the trend. So they like to convince their pro-military supporters that we are also in line with the international standards, nominally, basically. And also they like to, they don't want to lose face in the international arena. They like to portray themselves, they are the legitimate government. And only then they will be able to install those representative office in other countries and at the UN. And I think that's why they are doing it. And also I like to quote from 1984 from George Orwell book. They are using doublespeak. Like you said, they are doing something different, and at the same time they are saying something opposite. Like at the same time they are doing bad. At the same time they are the good guy. So they are using a doublespeak, in my opinion.
Okay, so that's a bit about the rationale as to why they're doing what they're doing. Let's get to the next part, which is what they're doing or what they might be doing. Tell us your thoughts about that.
Well, I mean, the military. If we look at the Myanmar history and now the coup happened, in hindsight, the military never has a plan to relinquish the power. And 2010 was a test. They just like to see how it goes if they loosen their power grid, and they see how it happened in 2015. Then they decided to take the country back by force in 2021. So they have so many economic interests that they don't want to lose, and they are afraid of basically being accused of prosecution of the crimes that they have committed. So economic interest and personal interest and fear of prosecution. So those are the main drivers, in my opinion, when they decide to stage the coup.
Right. And so the coup happened in 2021. They claimed that the election was unfair, but never really went to the extent to prove it, and had some rather ludicrous claims. I think the walkie-talkies Aung San Suu Kyi had, COVID restrictions, just to try to find something to justify their claim on power. And then for the subsequent number of years, as far as I know, there was no there have been no elections of any kind that have been held. They have just tried to solidify their grip on power as the country has devolved further into conflict, and the atrocities has risen, as you talked about at the start. And so why now? Why now is the time that there's increasing talk about these elections they want to put on?
Well, the military has promised the country and the whole world that they will hold the election after 1 year of state of emergency. And that was their promise. And they actually had never intention of holding elections right away. And they just declared this unconstitutional, invalid state of emergency. And now they are talking like they will hold elections, and that also coincided with the normal electoral mandate of 5-year period. If we have the stable conditions, if the country continue to transform it democratic transition, 2025 will be the election year. So that's why they strategically choose this year to hold the elections.
So you say they're choosing this year to hold the elections. Does that mean that you believe that literally in the calendar year 2025, we are going to see some version of elections in Myanmar?
Well, I like to approach that question with some statistics and development that is happening in the country that the military is conducting. You know, we see last year October the military collected Census population data, and in my opinion, that was a test. That was a test to test the water to see if they could hold elections. And according to their census data, they collected in 145 townships, and they could partially complete census process in 123 townships, and they could not do so at all in 62 townships. I mean, they organized that it's only 58 they cannot cover, but they released this preliminary report of census data. So in the report, I encountered individually that the number of townships that they cannot cover is 62. So they already tested like if they can hold elections, and so based on that census data, and I make some calculation analysis to see if they could really hold elections. And we have this 145 that they can cover completely, and we have 62 they cannot cover completely, and 123 in the middle. And so far, our resistance forces captured over 90 towns across the country. So taking into consideration all those factors, and also this 123 in the middle, the range is huge. What I mean, the range is the completion range. You know, when they conduct this census, in some townships they only complete like 0.1% of the population, which is negligible. In some townships they could complete up to like 90 or 90% of the population. So 123 they are in the middle. So I further categorize based on logical reasoning, and I came up they could potentially hold election in 176 townships. Key urban areas like Yangon, Mandalay, Ayeyarwady, Bago, Naypyidaw, they have a strong control on it, and also in Naga areas in Zagai region and northern part of Kachin state, and southern part of Shan state and Mon state, they have some control. So if they would like to, they could potentially hold elections. Like I said in the beginning, census was a test, and the data, the accuracy of the data is questionable. I agree, but so based on that data set, so I calculated these possible number of regions and states. So that gave us indication of where the election could happen. And also, if we look at 2008 Constitution, and many political analysts, and also recently one local political party leader is also saying that to hold to have a valid parliamentary session, the military only need 8% of the total seats. 25% is already occupied by the military appointees and elected, and 2000 Constitution say that to have a valid parliamentary session, you only need 1/3 of total representative who have the right to attend the session. So you come down to 33%, 25% already sitting in the room, and let that you only need 8%. So it's very plausible, in my opinion, if they would like to go ahead.
Are there any indications you've seen that they will go ahead?
At the moment in time, I mean, this condition is quite fluid. It can change very significantly and rapidly. Unless something significant happen, that stop their election, or if we resistance forces can take over more territory, and that can stop the election, I think it's quite possible. I mean, the junta leader is saying that that the military, the election must be whole, definitely, and it must be a successful one. And he talked about his state administration and council in March this year. And also recently, the military had an interview with Al Jazeera media. Actually, it was the day where the earthquake hit the country. So during the interview, the military spokesperson was saying that like what kind of electoral system they will use. So even though they have not published electoral law and electoral system to the public, but they are saying, what electoral system they will use, like PR and FPTP electoral system they will use for the upcoming election. So it is quite plausible, again, in my opinion.
And you had mentioned previously that there's a strong likelihood they would do advanced voting. What is the incentives for them to want to encourage advanced voting?
Yeah, definitely. They will, in my opinion, use advanced voting, and that's basically what they did back in 2010 elections. And I mean, the military, even though they control key urban areas in Yangon and Mandalay, Naypyidaw, and the security condition is quite unstable. And even in Naypyidaw recently, in outskirts of Naypyidaw, and their military, like small combine, was attacked. So, and people were not definitely come to the polling station, at the risk of who were guaranteeing their security. And like I say in the beginning, this is absolutely sham election, and this cannot guarantee free and fair and election, and it will not guarantee the free expression of the people. So the people will not come to the polling station. Maybe they will make the people vote at the gunpoint. I'm not sure they go that far. So for them to make sure that, or to declare that the election is successful, they will definitely use advanced voting, because again in March their state administration council meeting, Mayor Online specifically talk about advanced voting. He encouraged the people to cast vote in advance, and he specifically mentioned, I quote, advanced voting will not hurt the election, end quote. So definitely they will use advanced voting, in my opinion.
You touch upon this question of how they're going to bring people to the polling stations. And, we've seen these extraordinary silent strikes across Myanmar on particular days, and they are so effective. I mean, the streets are empty, the markets are empty, business doesn't open. It really accomplishes what it sets out to do, which is to establish that this is a countrywide resistance to the military, and that there is so little support anywhere to be found for them. It's really quite embarrassing that on the side of the military that the resistance can garner so much solidarity and support that the streets are just empty. And so one would have to think, if you can empty the streets, certainly you can bring that same, and we've seen that with schools as well, with refusing to go to colleges and schools, and that's also been a source of embarrassment, to say nothing of CDM and what it's done to government offices. So if that kind of support, popular support, can be mobilized, violence aside, which we'll get to in a moment, but violence aside, one would certainly think that there would be a way to mobilize public sentiment to simply not show up at polling stations to want to give any ounce of legitimacy for a population that has been so creative and so consistent and so courageous in its ability to not confer legitimacy and to not confer any kind of support or sympathy of any kind towards the military. And so, it reminds me of that English expression, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You could set up polling stations, but you can't make people vote. And, isn't this the ultimate contradiction, that you're forcing people against their will to cast a free and fair vote? I mean, how much sense does any of that make? And so this has to be another conundrum of the regime, is how you manipulate or force people to come to polling stations so they don't look closed. And you have an air of legitimacy knowing that there's going to be a concerted effort to do the opposite. And you can't really use overt force. You can't really be seen out in the open there's a lot of things they could do behind the scenes to threaten people, but you have to be a bit careful in your use of force when you're trying to show that they're going of their free will. So, what are your thoughts on this challenge the military faces of actually having real citizens come and cast their vote in the polling stations?
Well, definitely. I also foresee, these silent strikes are quite popular and successful. And I really commend the people in the country, standing together with the resistance forces, and then showing to the world, to the country, to the junta, that we do not accept their rule whatsoever. And yeah, I definitely foresee this kind of silent strike will happen, and on the election day, if the military organize the election. And I think military were used in various ways and in so many shapes and forms to intimidate the people to go to the polling station and to vote. And also we need to think about a few percentage of military supporters. In the country, we recently see, these pro-military supporters and organize a protest in Yangon and Mandalay, and they can so freely protest. And when resistance forces protest, we were shot in broad daylight in the head. And we were plowed by a car, and even in Yangon in broad daylight. So military were used when in whatsoever forms and ways of intimidation to force the people to go to polling station, in my opinion. And they will also pay the people, to go to polling station, and they will take some photos, and then they will use it as part of their propaganda, like people is lining up, to go into polling station and voting for this party and that party. So they will fabricate. They are very good at fabricating and spreading false information. And if one day organize this election, and there will not be free access to international media, I can guarantee that. So they will invite some countries like Cambodia and Russia and Belarus and India and China, who are closely supporting or who are willing to send their delegates and to observe election. And they will declare both domestic and international election observation organization observe our election. So definitely they were trying to manufacture any election outcome they want, any electoral environment they want. They were trying to align to the war, to the country. That's what they have been doing since day one.
Right. And so another question is, in an election, you have a choice to make. I assume the USDP is going to be, this is the military aligned party, is going to be one choice. What do we know about the nature of the other parties that are coming to the table and are looking to participate?
Well, this military sham election is not free and will not definitely be free and fair. So my question first is to those political parties who are planning to participate in the election. Do you really represent the people? All the people are against the military, and they are they're kind of like opportunists, They are now NLD party was illegally declared invalid and abolished by the military election council. So NLD party out of the picture. They are ready to, quickly grab any political seats as they can. So that's what they are planning to do so, in my opinion. And we have 54 political parties that have been registered with the election commission. And one can ask, okay, that 54 political parties, how many votes did they get in 2020 election? And that way answer, do they really represent the people? And if you look at these numbers, and I have been closely following these electoral development and making some election analysis, and we have this the junta registered political parties on one side, and we have non-registered political parties like NLD and SNLD on the other side. If we compare their electoral performance of 2020 elections, for example, in Myanmar Lotto, non-registered political parties like NLD and SNLD, they occupy 90% of seats. And this registered political parties, 53 parties combined, they only occupy 8% of the seats. And that tells us a really good picture of like that who are they really representing, meaning they do not represent the majority of the people. They are just an opportunist.
And that 8% is, you said, exactly what they need.
No, basically exactly what they need to make it 1/3 of total seats.
Yeah, right. What have been the reactions or the statements that we've heard from different internal actors? I'm thinking of three in particular. We could say the NUCC, the various EAOs, EROs, which are going to be very varied, certainly not monolithic, and then the PDFs. What are you hearing from these different internal actors as to how they're regarding these upcoming elections, and what their planned response, as far as you know, is to them?
As far as I understand, and these EROs, PDF, and NUCC, they are launching this anti-sham election campaign in one way or another, and then encouraging the people not to participate in this military sham election and to stay away from these polling stations and from these military sham election commission. And I understand that the NUCC and NUG, they have a joint anti-sham election committee, and they have been doing this public campaign of explaining to the people why this election is not the solution. It is another tactic of the military to entrench their power, to further consolidate their coup, to legitimize their rule in the country. So, and this anti-sham election committee also recently issued statements targeting this to the local political party that you just mentioned, urging these political parties, this sham election is not the solution. It will further consolidate the military rule, and it will further compound the suffering in the country. So not to participate in the election.
I'm also curious to know the reaction of the international actors. And I think, to some degree, there's a large number of countries we know right now, no matter what happens, they are not going to buy in to any legitimacy with these elections. And there are other countries that we know are going to completely buy in and support and prop up no matter what happens and how it comes out. We could put many Western countries on the side of of not buying into these, not conferring any legitimacy, and we can put countries like Russia, China, and Cambodia, Laos, Belarus, countries of this nature, we can say are almost certainly going to support the military and what the aims are and in this kind of show and circus that's going on. But what's interesting to me are those countries that fall in the middle and what they're going to do. You know, I'm thinking about countries like Thailand, like India, like even Japan and Korea, I've heard some things about, or Vietnam, or you know, say international bodies like ASEAN. I think every ASEAN country, kind of how they respond collectively and individually is going to matter. And so looking at these kind of middle countries that could be on one side of the fence or the other, and, you know, and even in those countries, it depends on kind of who's in charge and what they're saying, because there could be some splits within. But what are you hearing about those countries that are somewhat on the fence in determining, and maybe it depends on the show the military puts on, maybe it depends on the context at that time and other factors, so we can't quite know for sure now. But of those countries that are on the fence, what are you hearing about which ones are leaning towards one side or the other, and what conditions affect that? And then what would be the implication down the line of if it is legitimized to a greater extent?
Well, I mean, it's very hard to say these the countries in the middle, which side they will lean towards. I think it will depend on how the things unfold in the future. I mean, they have been sitting on the fence since the beginning, so they will assess the condition and going forward, and they were trying to adjust and adapt and maybe prioritizing their country own interest first. Well, I know that India is closely supporting the military junta. Last year, Indian ambassador met with military election commission and offering technical support and training. So, and China repeatedly saying that they will they support this election and they support military 5-point roadmap. And these Cambodians, and they offer to send delegations. And then these countries in the middle, like Japan, Korea, it's hard to see. It's hard to tell how they will behave. But again, this election will not change the resistance in any way, in my opinion. The resistance will gain with momentum. The resistance is going with momentum. I mean, in the early days of the resistance, people were speculating, the resistance will be crushed within days or within months. But after 4 years, we are going with momentum. So for us, I believe the resistance forces, EROs, including NUG, NUCC, will do necessary to defeat the military, and they will continue to engage the international community not to give legitimacy or in any shape of or legitimacy to the junta, and this does not represent the people, and this will further entrench the dictatorship inside Myanmar.
Now, the other part we have to look at is, as you mentioned, it was a 5-year mandate from the last election, and that's why the military is looking to run it in 2025. But we have to look at what we're seeing from the NUG side, because there has been, I think, questions on kind of shakier and shakier ground in terms of the ongoing legitimacy of the NUG and exactly, how I think the fact that they reflected the people's will from 2020, I think, is fairly well established and fairly well solid in terms of how it was set up and under the conditions of which, many of them were imprisoned, and how that those that remain free and how the selection process took place. But, this only lasts so long. And if the military is holding some version of elections and the NUG is not, this is not a great look. And yet how does practically, how would the NUG possibly administer elections with all the diaspora and migrants and exiles and contested areas and ethnic areas and everything else? And, ethnic forces have, they all have varying ideas about democracy or federal charter. So it's not like all those ethnic areas are just going to completely welcome the idea of democratic determination of one's future. And so this, there have been more steadily and increasing concerns that have been voiced about the relevancy of the NUG and its practical role in going forward. And now this is bringing forth a real, I would almost say, legitimacy crisis at a time when, tragically and really pathetically, the international community did not act when there was a space to recognize them as legitimate. There is beyond a question of a doubt that they were legitimate compared to the military. They didn't do it then when they had all the chips in. And so now when they're facing a more tenuous situation, one wonders what it can feel like their legitimacy is starting to erode somewhat unless they figure out some way to show they still have the people's mandate, but how to do that. And so what thought have you given to, as the military is looking to put on these sham elections, what position that puts the NUG in and what they might do or what you think they should do in response?
Well, I mean, this, it is quite fair to consider the mandate of CRPH, and the election was like 5 years ago, and under stable condition, of course, we will have another new election. But the country is not under stable condition, and fighting is occurring in every part of the country, and there's no freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, and political parties cannot compete freely. And the military, they passed this draconian political party registration law that favor their military aligned party, USDP. So in these circumstances, in this context, there's not any reason to organize election. So in this situation, it is not uncommon, even in international practice, to extend the mandate of previous election. And we recently seen Ukraine has done so. So CRPH mandate will hold, in my opinion, until we can hold any stable condition, we can hold transitional election, in my opinion. And why I still remember, I want to go back to this 8% that I mentioned in the beginning. I mean, this 8% came from now we consider defend 2008 Constitution. 2008 Constitution has been considered abolished by the democratic forces, by the resistance forces. But military still hold on to 2008 Constitution, right? Even though they violated repeatedly in the Constitution that they drafted by staging the coup, by arresting the president illegally. So by that Constitution, they only need 8%. This 2008 Constitution is also, it's not the Constitution that the people accepted. It is the Constitution that the military drafted one-sidedly, and then they trying to declare it is valid, right after Cyclone Nargis hit the country, back in 2008, right? So under this, really, really terrible constitution, and they only need 8%, right? And this 8%, they do not represent the people of Myanmar. So this is just military trying to, take advantage of all the possibility that they can have on the table, and to further entrench their military rule.
Another question concerns the implications of this, being able to put on this sham election, and considering how many countries start to fall in line with some level of legitimizing or recognizing what they put on for whatever extent or whatever they do, and recognizing the this election taking place. What is the implication of that? Does that change anything down the road? Does that change what Myanmar, what the regime is trying to accomplish, or what the resistance is, what they're looking to achieve? How does strategically, how do these puzzle pieces fit in terms of the implications or consequences if they're able to pull this off and have some small number of countries show support and understanding for what they did?
Well, for them, like I said, this will further entrench their military rule in the country once and for all, maybe, and this will give them the legitimacy that they lack.
Yeah.
So that's what they are going after. And also, I remember in the early days of the coup, a military spokesperson responded to one of the Western journalists. And the journalist was talking to him like, was the West and all the democratic countries where, launched sanction and everything. And then he replied that we decided to move forward with small, close, aligned countries. So that's what they are doing. And they were trying to present as a nominally legitimate government. And all the countries who are leaning towards the military, and they can now officially start to communicate with the military as the legitimate government. So they would like to achieve that, in my opinion, and also they are hoping maybe as the time passes, they will further cement their power in the country. I think that's what their aim is.
Well, thank you for giving us this comprehensive overview of your understanding of how we've got to this point and what is coming up next.
Thank you. I mean, I like to, relay message. When I have this opportunity. I mean, every day Myanmar people are living in constant fear of airstrike, fear of artillery, fear of arbitrary arrest, fear of extrajudicial killing. As long as the military is in power, the country will not be in peace, and the suffering will continue in front of our eyes. And only eradicating this junta and building federal democracy will bring stability not only to Myanmar, but also to the region and to the world. And in today's world where populists and dictators are on the rise, unfortunately, we are seeing Myanmar is defending its democracy. In effect, in a way, Myanmar is defending the democracy for the world. In this circumstances, I would like to request the international community to join Myanmar democratic movement hand in hand to support us, to support Myanmar democratic aspiration of building federal democracy union for everyone. Thank you.
Yes, hi, nice to meet you. My name is Wunna. So when the military unconstitutionally staged the coup, I was in Naypyidaw, and I still remember that morning, like my friend came and woke me up and she said something is wrong. Because she could not connect to the internet and Wi-Fi and phone lines were cut off, and then we immediately decided to go and check the municipal guest house in Naypyidaw. The members of parliament they were staying in those guest houses, and so we decided to go there and to check. And we found out that, many soldiers surrounded the municipal guest house area. And, the members of parliament were held kind of house arrest in those municipal guest houses. So they were not able to go to the parliament to convene the first session of their parliament term, and that was how I experienced the first day of the military coup.
So you were really at ground zero.
Yeah. So actually on that day we were kind of planning and exciting about the new beginning of the new parliament term. So yes, we kind of expected it, but also not expected it happen. Yeah.
But I mean, what's so fascinating about what you say is that so many people learned about the coup from, people outside the country had their own way, but people in Yangon or elsewhere, there's stories about the internet not working, hearing this rumor and that rumor, being woken up and hearing this. I mean, you were physically at the place where the first preliminary actions of taking over a country happened, and you saw it in front of your eyes. This is ground zero.
Yes, true. It was, I would say, I couldn't even, describe how I felt that day. It was, really powerless and hopeless. And we a group of people, I have friends in Naypyidaw, so we were kind of driving around Naypyidaw, checking the situation. So, yeah, but it was really, I would say, we felt really powerless and hopeless on the very first day.
So, what did you do? What were you thinking? What was your response to this unbelievable, historic, tragic situation unfolding in front of you? And you've already described a sense of powerlessness, which I think is absolutely understandable. Given this powerless feeling, and you mentioned driving around, what were you actually doing or trying to do at that point?
Yeah, same as most of the other people around Myanmar, we actually didn't know how to respond the situation. And then after a few days, there were protests in Mandalay and in Yangon, and government staff like civil servants and from different ministries, they joined the civil disobedience movement, and also Naypyidaw was one of those places. Most of the government ministries are there. So most of my friends who were civil servants, they also announced on their Facebook that they were joining civil disobedience movement. So we decided, a group of 5 people, including me and other friends, we decided to support them, to somehow contribute their action. So we arranged safe houses, and we also provided transportation for them. First, I myself have went to the government hostels, because they were provided hostels in Naypyidaw, government staff. So I went to the government hostels, and I picked the civil servants who wanted to leave Naypyidaw. The first thing what we did is that we just provided transportation, and also we provided some food in the safe houses before they can leave Naypyidaw. And yes, those were the things that I personally did in Naypyidaw. So we did that kind of activities with low profile. We were doing it in the administrative capital cities where Mayor Online is residing. So yeah, we kept it low profile, but we had to use our own bank accounts, for the donations, we receive donation from our friends and friends of friends, and so we kind of make transitions from our friends and also towards the civil servants who joined the civil disobedience movement. And later, my bank account was freezed because of those transactions. And then later, the military deployed many soldiers in Naypyidaw, like checkpoints, and I found it getting dangerous for me to do those kind of activities. So I left Naypyidaw and I went back to my native place. So other than like supporting those government servants and civil servants, I also kind of joined protest in Naypyidaw and also in my native place.
I'm also curious, do you remember at what point just the term and the concept civil disobedience started to come into consciousness? Do you remember the first time you heard this word and what context it was?
Yes. So I was once I was a civil servant in one of the institutions in Naypyidaw. So at the time, I first joined that institution around 2015. I was really hopeful because I thought we were on the track towards the democracy and towards the prosperous country. But what I really find out when I joined that institution is that the ex-military personnel, they dominated especially the senior positions, and they were trying to control the elected civilian government. Although the civilian government took over the office after they won the election, but actually, the government mechanisms and is kind of controlled by the ex-military personnel. So that's the experience that I had, and I was not really okay with that, I would say. Yeah. So and after I kind of had some disputes with those seniors who are ex-military personnel, and I kind of resigned from my position, but they kind of I would say they thought in the mindset they can punish me, so they kind of dismissed me instead of my resignation. And then they after I joined other organization, they trying to prevent me from going around the offices in Naypyidaw by kind of bad mouthing about me, like he is a disobedience person. So that what was I am already familiar with that, what I was saying.
You found the offices that and the duties that should have gone to the elected officials were instead continued to be controlled by the military. Do I have that correct?
And yeah, you can say that. And also, for the I would say junior level positions and government staff, we didn't really have the kind of responsibilities, or I would say authorities, to we do not have that much power to perform our work within our responsibilities. They just the senior officials, they just want the juniors to follow what they want to do, what they want us to do. If we kind of disagree, or if we kind of suggest or point out their instructions or their guidelines, they didn't actually like it. That's I think in in those kind of situations, I would say they disliked me and they labeled me as a disobedience person. Yeah.
I think what you're saying is also so valuable because often the international community, and looking at the transition years of 2015 to 2020, there's often a lot of criticism for NLD leadership and the Aung San Suu Kyi administration, and not to give them a free pass. I think there's definitely areas of criticism that can happen there, but I think there is this more nuanced look that has to be understood that you're bringing in, that some of the elected offices and officials, they were literally physically prevented, as you're saying, if I understand correctly, from doing the job they were charged with doing because the military just, they didn't acknowledge rule of law. They didn't acknowledge elections. They kind of allowed this whole charade to go through from start to finish and then say, okay, well, that looked good. And now we're going to keep doing things the way that they are here. I've never heard that part of the story. So that's really quite astounding.
Yes, I would say there are many power abuse, and also they also use their power to manipulate, and to restrict some of the elected MPs, when they have a chance. That's what I have seen when I'm working there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So let's continue on with your story. We left off when you had decided to leave Naypyidaw to go back to your home village and to begin participating in organizing greater protests and strikes, as well as encouraging CDM. So tell us what happened from there.
So, I left Naypyidaw. I went back to my native. But what happened there was, the military also cut off the internet connection, and I would say in my region. And my plan was that I am going to work from home for my organization, and also I can somehow I will somehow manage many transactions from my donors to the CDM staff. But I could not do that because of the internet cutoff. And also there were many, I would say, crash towns nearby my villages, nearby my village, I would say. And so I realized that, that I will not be able to do that I want to do if I stay in my native place. So I decided to leave. At first, there are also other factors that I do not want to mention, but I have many friends who joined the civil disobedience movement, and they also kind of request me to participate in their activities and do their office jobs. So there are also those kind of requests, and so in order to do so, it is not safe to stay. I will not be able to work in my village because of the internet cutoff, and it will not be safe for me if I even work from other cities like Yangon or Mandalay. So I thought it would be better to leave the country. So I left the country.
Was that a hard decision to make?
Yes, of course. I had to talk to my mom so that she can understand me, because she was really worried about me, and I had to kind of, at that time there was no conscription law by the military, right. But somehow I kind of predicted, I would say, that there will be some circumstances that the military will force me to join the military, or the military use the people. We've been hearing many stories about the military using the people as human shields when they attack the ethnic minority places. I talked to my mother. There are possibilities that I will face that kind of situation, and of course I do not want to join in the military, or I do not want to participate in those kind. I do not want to be used by the military. And on the other hand, if I stay in my village, there is another option. I should find a way to go to the liberated area. I contacted my friend, and my friend suggested me, you do not necessarily need to come to the liberated area, but you can somehow help us from other place which is safe. So that is why I left.
Was that a hard decision?
Yes. Well, of course, till now, I couldn't imagine that I will not be able to go back to Myanmar. I will not be able to see my families and my friends. So I still couldn't imagine that scenario.
That's a lot to hold, and there's so many people that are in your situation. And I'm recalling conversations we've had on here that have focused about, it was like looking back to this generational thing of, in 1988, there were a number of activists who thought they were winning, then thought that the military had a bit of momentum, so they were going to regroup. They were going to go outside the country. They were going to consolidate, and they were going to come back and take what was theirs and what was rightfully theirs. And as we know, that played out in decades and generations of people not being able to go home. Many of them finally were able to visit during the transition period, and very, very famous visits that they were finally able to get back. And I know that there's this loss of home that pervades a lot of the diaspora community now. I think diaspora is the wrong word to use, actually, because diaspora is more of an indication of someone who is chosen of their own free will to grow up or raise a family or be abroad for extended periods. This is an exile community. This is an exile community made of migrants and refugees, and as well as those more fortunate like yourselves with training in school who have proper visas and such, but that are still are forced to have to continue to be away from home, and in something that, seemed at the time like it was a choice made in the moment for that might have to be the case for months or maybe even years going forward. But it's really quite unimaginable to presume or to consider, what if this turns into decades? What if this turns into generations? I'm sure that must have crossed your mind, and I'm sure that must be something, really so, just so traumatic to even consider as a possibility.
Yes, of course, that is also a possibility. But what I keep myself is that, we started this revolution from nothing, and now we have something. So we still have the opportunity, to prevail in this revolution. So that's the way I keep myself to be able to focus. And on personal level, I am also contributing what I can. So I am doing what I can. And of course, there are situations that I cannot control. So I try not to think more about those kind of things that I cannot control. What I am doing is, I try. Yes, of course, there are many thoughts came to my mind, but I try not to think more about those situations, and I do what I need to do.
Yeah, I mean that's all you can do in situations like this, as the thing is stretched on, and who knows where it's going next. And so taking a step back and looking at the last 4+ years that has these unimaginable, unpredictable years that have progressed since that day in February 1st, 2021, when you in Naypyidaw actually saw the guest houses surrounded by military. It's still just incredible that you were a witness to that. But as you look at what has happened from then till now, what thoughts come to mind? How do you see this movement, this revolution? What are the challenges? What are your concerns? What are your inspirations?
Yeah, and so to answer your question, I just want to, say some of the incidents that I faced. That is, when I arrived to the safe place currently where I lived, I would say. So especially like I met with many international persons, international communities, and I still remember, when the National Unity Government announced people's defensive war against the military. And most of the international experts and communities, they did not necessarily agree with the idea, and I understand that they were worried about the safety of the people, and yes, but when I face those kind of situations, my question to them is that, so what should we do to avoid, to avoid the military's operations, the military's brutal killings and human rights violations? Right. While at the same time we want to restore the democracy. Yeah. So what suggestions do you have for us? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That is the question. Yeah. I have, and of course they do not have any answer. And of course nobody had any answers towards that. And of course, there are many situations that we are in a dilemma situation. But to be able to, to be able to restore the democracy and also to defend the people, we have to walk that way.
Right. And so, now this movement has grown into something so much more and so much longer that has been sustaining, and that has, that very rightly should be inspiring the world in terms of what has been put together. And yet the struggle is still there. The challenges are still there as we move and go on. And so as you think and reflect about where you're at now and also what you wanted to share on this platform, are there other things you would like to bring to our audience that you'd like them to know?
Yes, there are things that, yes, of course, I want to mention. And, the beauty of our revolution is that, we can hear so many voices from various actors from Myanmar. I think that is the beauty of our revolution, and this is also, we are kind of practicing freedom of expression during crisis. And yes, I agree, like the importance of criticism, and it would be best if those criticisms were constructive and followed by the contributions, but I don't really see actual contributions rather than just talk in various versions, I would say. And sometimes I can see that those criticisms unintentionally lobby for the military towards the international community. Intentionally, I also raise, and I think those kind of situation, and the military also knows that your criticisms benefit them. And I personally raise questions and my concerns towards the relevant actors or stakeholders if I have a chance to talk or to write to them. But I do it in private, not in public, because I do not want to cause backlash towards the revolution. I think we should be mindful of the consequences of our actions. And another thing is that, it is also really important to give policy advice, suggestions, and recommendations towards the National Unity Government, our revolution government. And those suggestions and recommendations should be followed by your actual practical contribution. It would be best if you could provide not only suggestions and recommendations, but also explain how you can help them implement your ideas. And yes, another point of view that I have seen many times is that there are many competing political ideologies and political theories regarding the future of Myanmar. I agree political theories are useful to analyze the situation in Myanmar, and it should be applied for the sake of the people, not to prove that your theory is the righteous one. Because, what you are trying to do is that, based on the lives of people of Myanmar, I think we also need to be very careful about that. And I frequently see and hear those attempts, especially in the academic workshops and international meetings related to Myanmar. So they may all have good intentions, but at the same time, they should also reflect whether they are interfering the political landscape between the democratic actors.
I think these are really important points because you're giving this kind of inside-out perspective of having the international community come into the situation, trying to help with varying degrees of understanding and sensitivity. And you're describing some of those cases where what they're doing is not actually that helpful for what the needs are, what the process is for the democratic forces and what they're trying to do. And I think this is, and hopefully some of those people are listening here now. And I think this is a really good forum and platform for being able to, to speak to those kinds of actors regarding really what is helpful and what is not helpful at this time. And I think that is what we need to hear more of.
Yes. In that case, I think we can. I do not have any intentions. I do not want them to have those kind of discussions or workshops. My intention is, to think about, for the people, because people have been suffering for a long time, and they are. If their discussions or if their talks leads to the situation where many divisions between it may somehow lead to the divisions among our alliances. It will not be good for our country. Yeah, I just want to conclude with some of the. I just want to conclude that about not only about Myanmar but also about what's happening around the world. As we all know that democracy is under attack, even in the most developed country, the world's leading nations across the globe. So. It is really depressing, but we cannot just feel depressed and sit back. We need to act. So in this case, Myanmar is one of the places where you can contribute individually with your network or through your government. And please, I just want to request, be part of our history. in defending and nurturing democracy. If unfortunately, if we lose, maybe you can say to your children or to your grandchildren, yeah, we contributed to Myanmar's revolution, but it was unfortunate. You can say that. But I believe that you will be able to say like proudly that you participated in Myanmar's revolution and we prevailed in the revolution. Yes, as I mentioned earlier, please do not overthink and just do what we need to do, and together we will win.
Thank you for staying with us for the duration of this interview. In a world where Myanmar's crisis has largely faded from the headlines, critical voices and perspectives are being left unheard. And that is where we hope to come in. Through this humble platform, we're trying to provide something unique, an opportunity to share important experiences, insights, struggles, and perspectives in depth, and in a way that few other media sources offer. Our content not only keeps the sputtering global conversation about Myanmar alive, but it also brings much needed attention to those now fighting for their very freedom and dignity. So if you value this work and the perspectives we're offering, please consider supporting us. Your contributions help us to continue to amplify these voices that matter and provide the world with the coverage of Myanmar that it so deserves. Visit insightmyanmar.org/donation to stand with us.
Oba yarananda dayananga